In this presentation, I'm going to talk about the theme and the symbols in the book Lord of the Flies by William Golding. This book shows how easy it is to follow the impulses that makes you satisfy your desires no matter what when there is an absence of authority. Civilization versus savagery. The main concern in the book Lord of the Flies is the conflict between two competing impulses that exist within all human beings. The first is the instinct to live by rules, act peacefully, follow moral commands, and value the good of the group. The other one is the instinct to satisfy one's immediate desire, act violently to obtain superiority over others, and enforce one's will. To say it in a less complicated way, you can say it is a conflict between civilization versus savagery, order versus chaos, reason versus impulse, law versus anarchy, or the broader heading of God versus evil. These conflicts are explored through the dissolution of the young English boys' civilized moral discipline and behavior as they accustom themselves to a wild, brutal, barbaric life in the jungle. Lord of the Flies is an allegorical novel, which means that Golding conveys many of his main ideas and themes through symbolic characters and objects. He represents a conflict between civilization and savagery in the conflict between the novel's two main characters. Ralph, the protagonist, who represents order and leadership, and Jack, the antagonist, who represents savagery and the desire for power. As the novel progresses, Golding shows how different people feel the influence of the instinct of civilization and savagery to different degrees. Piggy, for instance, has no savage feelings, while Roger seems barely capable of comprehending the rules of civilization. Generally, however, Golding implies that the instinct of savagery is far more primal and fundamental to the human psyche than the instinct of civilization. Golding sees moral behavior in many cases as something that civilization forces upon the individual rather than a natural expression of human individuality. When left to their own devices, Golding implies people naturally revert to cruelty, savagery, and barbarism. This idea of innate human evil is central to Lord of the Flies and finds expression in several important symbols, most notably the beast and the soul's head on the stack. Among all the characters, only Simon seems to possess anything like a natural, innate goodness. Loss of innocence. As the boys on the island progress from well-behaved, orderly children longing to rescue the cruel, bloodthirsty hunters who have no desire to return to civilization, they naturally lose the sense of innocence that they possessed at the beginning of the novel. The painted savages in chapter 12 who have hunted, tortured, and killed animals and human beings are a far cry from the guileless children swimming in the lagoon in chapter 3. But Golding does not portray this loss of innocence as something that is done to the children. Rather, it results naturally from their increasing openness to the innate evil and savagery that has always existed within them. Golding implies that civilization can mitigate but never wipe out the innate evil that exists within all human beings. The forest glade in which Simon sits in chapter 3 symbolizes this loss of innocence. At first, it is a place of natural beauty and peace, but when Simon returns later in the novel, he discovers the bloody soul's head impaled upon a stack in the middle of the clearing. The bloody offering to the beast has disrupted the paradise that existed before, a powerful symbol of innate human evil disrupting childhood innocence. Biblical parallels. Many critics have characterized Lord of the Flies as a retelling of episodes from the Bible. While the description may be an oversimplification, the novel does echo certain Christian images and themes. Golding does not make any explicit or direct connections to Christian symbols in Lord of the Flies. Instead, these biblical parallels function as a kind of subtle motif in the novel, adding thematic resonance to the main ideas of the story. The island itself, particularly Simon's glade in the forest, recalls the Garden of Eden in its status as an originally pristine place that is corrupted by the introduction of evil. Similarly, we may see the Lord of the Flies as a representation of the evil, for it works to promote evil among humankind. Furthermore, many critics have drawn stronger parallels between Simon and Jesus. Among the boys, Simon is the one who arrives at the moral truth of the novel, and the other boys kill him sacrificially as a consequence of having discovered this truth. Simon's conversation with the Lord of the Flies also parallels the confrontation between Jesus and the devil during Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness as told in the Christian Gospel. However, it is important to remember that the parallels between Simon and Christ are not complete, and that there are limits to reading Lord of the Flies purely as a Christian allegory. Although Simon is wise in many ways, his death does not bring salvation to the island, rather his death plunges the island deeper into savagery and moral guilt. Moreover, Simon dies before he is able to tell the boys the truth he has discovered. Jesus, in contrast, was killed while spreading his moral philosophy. In this way, Simon and Lord of the Flies as a whole echoes Christian ideas and themes without developing explicit, precise parallels within them. The novel's biblical parallels enhance its moral themes, but are not necessarily the primary key to interpreting the story. The conch shell. Ralph and Piggy discover the conch shell on the beach at the start of the novel and use it to summon the boys together after the crest separates them. Used in this capacity, the conch shell becomes a powerful symbol of civilization and order in the novel. The shell effectively governs the boys' meetings. For the boys who holds the shell holds the right to speak. In this regard, the shell is more than a symbol. It is an actual vessel of political legitimacy and democratic power. As the island civilization erodes and the boys descend into savagery, the conch shell loses its power and influence among them. Ralph clutches the shell desperately when he talks about his role in murdering Simon. Later, the boys ignore Ralph and throw stones at him when he attempts to blow the conch in Jack's camp. The boulder that Roger rolls onto Piggy also crushes the conch, signifying the demise of the civilized instinct among almost all the boys on the island. An example on page 22 to 26. Piggy's glasses is one symbol, and Piggy is the most intelligent, rational boy in the group, and his glasses represents the power of science and intellectual endeavor in society. This symbolic significance is clear from the start of the novel, when the boys use the lenses from Piggy's glasses to focus the sunlight and start a fire. When Jack's hunters raid Jalf's camp and steal the glasses, the savage effectively take the power to make fire, leaving Ralph's group helpless. Example on page 49 and 50. The signal fire. The signal fire burns on the mountain and later on the beach to attract the notice of passing ships that might be able to rescue the boys. As a result, the signal fire becomes a barometer of the boys' connection to civilization. In the early part of the novel, the fact that the boys maintain the fire is a sign that they want to be rescued and return to society. When the fire burns low or goes out, we realize that the boys have lost sight of their desire to be rescued and have accepted their savage lives on the island. The signal fire thus functions as a kind of measurement of the strength of the civilized instinct remaining on the island. Ironically, at the end of the novel, a fire finally summons a ship to the island, but not the signal fire. Instead, it is the fire of savagery the forest fire Jack's gang starts as part of his quest to hunt and kill Ralph. Page 49 is an example. The beast. The imaginary beast that frightens all the boys stands for the primal instinct of savagery that exists within all human beings. The boys are afraid of the beast, but only Simon reaches the realization that they fear the beast because it exists within each of them. As the boys grow more savage, their belief in the beast grows stronger. But at the end of the novel, the boys are leaving its sacrifice and treating it as a totemic god. The boys' behavior is what brings the beast into existence. So the more savagely the boys act, the more real the beast seems to become. Lord of the Flies is the bloody sow's head that Jack impaled on the stack in the forest laid as an offering to the beast. This complicated symbol becomes the most important image in the novel when Simon confronts the sow's head in the glade, and it seems to speak to him, telling him that evil lies within every human heart and promising to have some fun with him. In this way, the Lord of the Flies becomes both psychical manifestation of the beast and a symbol of the power of evil and a kind of Satan figure who evokes the beast within each human being. Looking at the novel in the context of biblical parallels, the Lord of the Flies recalls the devil just as Simon recalls Jesus. In fact, the Lord of the Flies is a literal translation of the name of the biblical name Beelzebub, a powerful demon in hell, sometimes thought to be devil himself. Lord of the Flies is an allegorical novel, and many of his characters signify important symbols or themes. Ralph represents order, leadership, and civilization. Piggy represents the scientific and intellectual aspect of civilization. Jack represents unbridled savagery and the desire for power. Simon represents natural human goodness. Roger represents brutality and bloodlust at their most extreme. The extent that the boys' society resembles a political state, the little ones might be seen as the common people, while the older boys represents the ruling classes and political leaders. So, this book shows us that there are a fine line between good and evil, and it is easy to cross it. Every human being has something good and something bad inside. Most people are good in their daily life, but when it comes to survival, is it easy to turn bad and do what it takes to survive? Here are my sources.